Hey, it's the phenomenal STEMist. The phenomenal STEMist. I hope everybody's watching. I see some people watching already. Sorry, we're late. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but we are here and ready to go. Who's watching? I wonder who's. It must be my mother watching. I know my mother.
Listen, you gotta count on mom.
Oh my gosh, good to see you, Katora. Thank you so much for doing this interview with me. Um, Audience, welcome, Katora. Yeah, what did I say? What did I tell you? What did I tell you? I told you it was her. I told you it was
I
she's
love
the,
it. What's going on, mom?
she's the number one fan, and then people come in and I don't know who's watching on YouTube, but definitely people watch the replay. Katora Jenkins is here with us. She is a director. I'm not going to say the director, but a director of enterprise transformation. Now, I have no idea what that is, and I know a lot of people don't, and that's why I had to have you on because I like novel careers. I
Yeah.
love novel careers. Yeah, so we're gonna really get into it soon. Welcome those of you who are watching. I see more people in the room. Thank you for joining. Phenomenal STEMist, phenomenal first Sundays. Uh, Katora,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have you introduce yourself. In terms of uh your process, what you do. But before you go into those details, you can pretty much talk about how you got your degree, etc., while you're answering these questions. So the first questions I have for you is when did you fall in love with your discipline? So, like, what is your
Yeah.
discipline? I guess like I don't think there's an enterprise transformation major in college. So,
No.
what's your discipline, and when did you fall in love with it?
Yeah. So what's funny about that is throughout even my family, they're all like, "We don't really know what you do. We just know you work in corporate America," which always makes me feel a kind of way. But um, what I do, so yes, I'm director of enterprise transformation. Really, what that is, it's seated in IT, so in technology. And how do we help the business transform leveraging technology? So a lot of people focus on just doing a technical implementation without actually changing their processes. So I give you the analogy like, okay, you were writing it with pencil and paper, and now if you're doing that exact same thing but just throwing it into a Word document, like we're probably not going to get the value out of what we're doing. So when you implement these large scale platforms, think of like ServiceNow or Salesforce, like these big systems. But if you just try to break the system to do what you're doing today, it's not going to work. So what my
Mm.
team comes in and does is says, hey, let's look at our processes to see how we can streamline them and make them better, so they can leverage the technology so we can get the value out of it. So whereas my peers are a lot on that technical depth, mine is on that process orientation.
Okay, so definitely the foundation of this career is information technology, IT. So when did you fall in love with that discipline?
Yeah, sorry, I was going there. So my
Yes,
degree
yes.
is in management information systems. So it is an IT degree. It is a technical degree, and but it's a degree that sits in the business school. So typically, who knows? I've been out of school for a while, so who knows where it sits now? But so it was a business degree, but the focus on technology. And I always loved it because I liked technology and I could speak the language, but I know I didn't want to develop code. So it was kind of like, oh, the ability to do both. So when I fell in love with it is because, so I've always worked for Fortune 50 companies, so large corporate America companies. And at the time, I was working in a company that had a ton of manufacturing. So it was big into like Six Sigma and lean processing, all of that stuff. And when I began to go through those certifications, it's like I found the language to how I can help people. So,
Mm.
I'm green belt, black belt, lean, and ITIL certified, in addition to some other things. But it helped me figure out, like, oh, these are the words or these are the things that I look for when some of the things I do naturally. It now gave me the language to how to fix them. And then, but typically, we're fixing technology issues. So I'm looking at how someone is developing code and are they doing it according to the processes that are industry standard or are they doing it in some other place. So once I found that, I was golden,
Wow.
because before that I kind of felt like I was a non-techie person trying to be in a techie place, and girl, they would ask me questions, and I would be trying to hide because that's not my that's not my depth. But once I realized that, oh wait, this is the value I bring to it, I come to the meetings loud and proud because I'm like, here's what I do well, and here is it. No, I'm not going to develop the code, but quite frankly, at my level now, you don't want me developing code anyway because it doesn't make any sense. So that's what made me fall in love with it and really figure out what my value was in technology beyond someone who develops code.
So like you found your niche in technology without being a techie. So you don't have to be a techie to get in the technology field, huh? Like, because I remember trying to teach myself code and I had a headache. I said, no, this is not for me. I don't know the language.
Yeah.
But it seems to me that you can relish, or you can develop yourself and do well and succeed and be in leadership in the technology arena without having to know the nitty-gritty details of code language, of computer language. So coding, just to let you know, is the language of computers and creating the inner language of computers to make all the programs that we do run. Everything we're talking about, we're on Facebook and YouTube and Restream, it's run by code underneath the language in the computer. Yeah, go ahead, Kitor.
Yeah, so to that point, right? So you don't have to know the code. What you do have to be is a logical thinker, because code, if nothing else, is logical. So if you understand logic and you can logic your way through it, I don't need to know Python or know whatever code it is. I can just start to see, okay, the way that we're doing this, is it in the best way possible? And it's not only just developing the code, it's also in, how we do change control, right? So how do you promoting that code to production, and how do you getting it out in front of your users? All of that process is really helpful. But if I understand it logically, then I can speak the language of the business and I can speak the language of the technologist.
Wow. So what I'm hearing constantly from you is speaking the language.
Oh yeah.
Being able to speak the language of the industry that you're in. And so that is, I think, one of the first things I'm taking away from this interview. All right. So, and you loved technology, you loved the language. That's what I'm hearing from you too. You said that's when you fell in love with it, and you love the language of business. You've like always been interested in Fortune, 50 companies. So you've been working in corporate America for a while. So you had to go to college first.
Yep.
And it required a lot of discipline, I'm assuming. What tools did you use to discipline yourself to succeed?
Yeah, so the tools that I use then are probably similar to ones I use now, right? It's understanding what's going on. So, and I say that to, it's like you can't just bury your head in something, because technology moves too quickly. So by the time I'm heads down and I've mastered this thing, like they're on to the next one. So for me, it was always about understanding not only what I'm learning, but what does it mean in the larger context about what I'm learning. So like I told you that I'm Six Sigma, Lean, certified, all that stuff. But all that stuff is basically about producing a quality product. And the length and how we do that has morphed over time. So it used to be Six Sigma, where it was very statistically driven, and a lot of companies still use it now. Then it went to kind of lean, which was lean manufacturing, like Toyota, which was much more like reducing waste and how do I look at this thing and see that it's flowing. It's very visually oriented. Then it went to ITIL, which, so my point is that as it morphed, I had to kind of adjust with it, because but either way, I understood globally what we were trying to do. And so I could just kind of apply it in various ways. And so when I think of what disciplines I use, it was the discipline of not just going heads down and trying to memorize a whole bunch of stuff. It's about understanding what it is and what's the problem it's trying to solve, and then being keyed into the industry to see how are we solving that problem in new and innovative ways.
Wow. So, okay. So I'm hearing you had to adapt.
Yes.
You had to, because especially in technology, all right? This is not biology where the cell is the fundamental unit of life. And I'm still learning it now. I'm still saying it now.
Yeah.
hundreds of years later. Technology evolves like
Yeah.
real fast. So you can't just try to memorize one thing and then think you're set. You have to be willing to constantly adapt to succeed in this. In That's so true. What you're
Yeah.
saying is so true. And tell me a little bit about black belt. I hear all those
Oh,
stuff in
sorry.
business. What are those things? Those are there's certifications that you need. You don't just need college. I'm
Yeah.
hearing, and sometimes you don't even need college in certain cases. But like, tell me about what these certifications are a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Six Sigma is a methodology where we look at trying to reduce defects. So, think about a manufacturing line, right? So, I'm making this widget. So, every time I make 1,000 of these widgets, let's say 10 of them are bad, right? And in manufacturing, we hate that because that's waste and it's rework. So, we hate that. So, what this does is says, okay, for every 1,000, 10 of them are bad. How can I look at it to understand if I'm observing and I plug in all the data, I understand what in your process is making those 10 go bad, and I'm trying to reduce the 10 down. So what we're trying to get, it comes from the term Six Sigma, which is an efficiency rate of like 99.9% efficiency rate, right? So I'm trying to get
Oh,
to a Six Sigma of like for every million, I'm getting one defect. And think about things like airplane engines, right? So I used to work in an airplane engine manufacturing, right? You don't want them to have 10 defects for every 1,000
right,
planes.
right, right, right,
You don't want that,
right.
right? So some other things were like, if it's something cheap I'm buying out of Walmart, maybe I don't care. But on the airplane, not so much. So it's really looking at that manufacturing and how do I reduce my number of defects. Or when you get into things like lean manufacturing, it's not only reducing the defects, but how do I make sure I go quicker? And in speeding up my process, I'm not just kicking out more defects. Because some people are like, well, just go faster. Well, now what if my defects go up to 20 per thousand? Now I'm messed up. So it's all about, and so that's a manufacturing example. But everything we do right now, particularly again in these big companies, you're doing millions of them transactions. So
Right.
like if you work for a healthcare company, right? You're processing members' information. Well, if I get that wrong, 10 for every
Right.
1,000, they're gonna be really upset with me.
Right.
So that's just an example.
What is it? A program? It is a certificate. What is it?
Yeah. So you can get a certification in it, and what it does is it helps you.
Okay.
So in Six Sigma, what you go through is called the DMAIC process. Define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. So, how do I define what my problem is? How do I measure it? How do I analyze that measurements to see where my issues are? How do I then
Right.
put some improvements in place? And then how do I control those improvements to make sure that just when I improved it the one time, it doesn't go back to being bad?
And what you're saying is so necessary in corporate America, in things that create large amounts of things that serve people. And it requires a lot of critical thinking,
Yes.
right? And so what I'm hearing is you have to be able to critically think well. So you have to discipline yourself enough to critically think well, get certifications to help you do that, and
Yep.
to basically show corporate America that you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to adapt
Yes.
to
Yeah.
all.
You got to make sure that you have to adapt, and you got to make sure that I'm fixing the right problem, because sometimes people will come and be
Mm,
like, oh, this is the problem, and you got to be like, wait a minute, is this the right problem that I'm fixing?
wow.
Because if I fix this one, if it's still not reducing my defects, or it's not making me go faster, then it was a waste of time. So
Mm,
that's also important too. And sometimes I give the analogy, like I go in, like imagine I'm coming into your house and I'm like, the walls are an ugly color, right? So because something's not right, but I have to come in a way to understand the context that you painted those walls under. Because if you
mm,
painted them that color because those are the only colors available, if I come in and say it's ugly, you're going to be defensive, right? But if I come in and say I painted it this color because the client needed it to be one of these three colors and this was my best option. If I come in and tell you you got to paint it this other color, now I'm gonna mess up because now the client's gonna be angry.
right.
not within it. So a lot of it is understanding the context of it, and then making sure that people understand that you're there to help, and understanding, how they did came to where they came, not just coming in and be like, this thing sucks, let me fix it, because that usually doesn't go well.
That doesn't go well. You're teaching me a lot because this has to happen in every organization.
every
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 organization, you got it.
organization, yeah. And so
Wow. Oh,
sometimes, again, it's not, as I'll say, manufacturing is an easy one because you have these hard things coming out. But you can apply this in anything you do. And a
mhm.
lot of these tools, girl, I use them personally sometimes. Like if you're deciding on what's the best thing to do, it just gives you a mechanism to figure out what's the best solution. So it's awesome.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you know,
But
okay.
it,
I see some people watching. Mike Felix, do me a favor and share it on on Black Orlando Tech. I haven't shared it yet. Let me see if I can share it on Black Orlando Tech if I have it anywhere here. But good to see you guys watching. Those of you from Black Orlando Tech, I see you see Jonice watching.
I
Michelle Ali, yeah. Okay, I just shared it. Good to see you all watching. This is an awesome interview so far. I mean, just beginning. Okay, so tell me a little bit in terms of your schooling. What first of all,
yeah,
what degrees did you get,
yep,
and what were your challenges in school? So tell me
yeah.
what your
So
process.
funny enough, degree single. I only have an undergraduate degree, which part of me feels a kind of way because most of my friends have advanced degrees or terminal degrees, right? And
It
I'm
don't matter. You making more money than me. I don't care.
well, listen, that's what my family keeps telling me. They're like, just sit down, you're fine. But I come from a family of educators, right? So they all, and my mother has a doctorate degree. But anyway, so I have a bachelor's degree. I have a bachelor's degree in management information systems. Um, and I was going to go get an MBA right after I got out of school, like 3 years or so after. But the reality is, in my particular company, they would have paid for my MBA, but they wouldn't have paid me anymore. Like they don't care. Like for them, it's like what experience do you have at the table? It's not what degrees you have behind your name. And even and again, this depends on industry, right? But I'm in corporate America. So in corporate America, like you just can you show and demonstrate that? And the fact that I can demonstrate that I've done these things at companies of this scale, they don't care that don't have any letters behind my name. They just care that I've been able to deliver. So that's worked for me. Although I will say that continuous learning is still important, even if there's not a certificate attached to it, even if there's not whatever, whether it's industry conferences or me understanding what my vendors are doing to kind of keep me up to speed. That's really important, even if it doesn't result in a certificate or a degree. But yeah, that has not been my experience at all. So I have one single degree.
That's awesome to know. So she has one single degree, a bachelor's in the management information system, the technology degree, but it still came with challenges, even if it
Oh
was
yeah,
just 4 years. So what were your challenges?
yeah. Thanks for bringing me back to that. So my challenges
Okay.
with it were always around how do I understand how deep should I go in the technology piece, right? So again, so think back to when we were in college, right? You're in college, you're like early 20, late teens, early 20s, and so I took a coding class. And I remember the teacher telling us, she's like, you guys are never going to use this stuff, right? And when you're like 19, then your brain turns off. As soon as they say
Mm,
you're not going to use this. However, going back to this analogy of learning the language, if I don't know basic coding skills, then I can't speak to a technologist about it. So even
mm,
though I would tell my team when I led more technical teams, if I'm in there writing some code, something has gone horribly wrong and it's going to be really bad. But I could go in at a certain point in my career and I could look at the code and understand what it was trying to do. So for me, my challenge was understanding how deep do I need to go to understand it versus where it wasn't going to be valuable anymore. So not turning my brain off when the teacher was like, "You're never going to use it," uh,
uh,
but also making sure that I'm deep enough so that I could also, quite frankly, in some of these places, you need some credibility because if these technical people see you coming and you can't even understand when they're telling you what they're doing in the code, then they're gonna shut themselves off. So that was my biggest challenge is understanding that and understanding how much business, it's like that balance of understanding the business, understanding the technology. Like, what was that balance for me, so that I
Yeah.
could get the value. So that was hard to me. The classes weren't horribly challenging, because I thought it was kind of cool. Like, you type in a couple things and then you press enter, and then like something random would happen. Like, that to me was kind of, it was kind of cool. It was kind of almost like a science experiment when I used to be a biology major, because it's like you're typing in the stuff and you get this thing. So
Results.
yeah, yeah. So that, but that was my challenge always. Like, how deep do I need to understand this? Do I need to just get a pat? Do I need to just learn it, or do I need to truly understand it because it's coming back?
Okay, that's pretty cool. And so what I'm getting from you is, number one, this is for those of you who don't like a lot of school. You don't need a lot of school. Right? As
Yeah.
long as you could do the work and do the things like that she talked about earlier in terms of disciplining yourself in your career.
Yeah.
What you do need to do is have a certain a level of knowledge to be able to communicate with people in the industry. So that's really good for you to know. And I love to say this to people, because one of my biggest pushes, especially for black males, to be honest, is IT. Because many say, Dr. Byfield, I just don't want to be in school for 12 years, and I want to be able to support my family. And I'm like, well, then, this is a good career, and so I hope people are listening. If you don't like school, I'm not saying you shouldn't like school. I love school, all right? But
Listen, I
not
love school
every
too. That's why I
yeah.
tell them that I only have one degree. But you're right.
But to your point, I love the fact that you did not go and get the masters and the PhD just to have the letters, because there's so many people, though your institution would have paid for you to go to school, it probably would have taken a little bit of time away from you and your family. Like, not, you don't always have to get the all the letters.
I just
Don't let especially if they're not paying for it, do not put yourself in debt for things that don't increase the worth of your salary.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
I literally just gave that advice to. So I have a mentee, and she's kind of mid career, but going into techno and going now into more technology. And she's like, "Well, I want to do more. I'm gonna go get this MBA." I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's that doesn't matter if you that MBA is just gonna put you in a ton of debt. And the job that you are doing right now, that MBA is not applicable at all." So
Right.
I'm like, so if you want to do something else, we can talk about that. But if you're trying to accelerate what you're doing now, you need to go get a certificate and a certification in a language. And that's, we're talking about the difference of years versus a couple of weeks, and
Right.
tens of thousands of dollars versus like 1,500. so so
And then that 1,500 will like make your salary jump.
yes, exactly. So yeah, I'm completely there with you. I am not a degree for degree's sake, although I do value education.
Right.
But let's do it intentionally. Let's not just do it to
Right.
check a box.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, this is just word right here, Katora. Let's not do this to check a box.
Yes.
Let's do education intentionally.
Yes.
Intentionally. What made Jonice has a question. What made you change? And it has to do with this topic. So I don't want to move on to the next question. So what made you change your major? If that
Yeah.
had right, like you said, you were a biology major. What made you
I
change it?
was. Yeah, so interestingly enough, I mean, I think things are changing now, but basically when I was a kid, it was like, you're smart, be a doctor or a lawyer. Like, there was two
Right.
choices, right? And my mother is a physician. So I just kind of always gravitated towards, plus, it was always interesting to me. I love the compassionate component of being in medicine. And so so I started pre-med and was not loving it. Like, it wasn't horrible, but I wasn't loving it. And I remember that, girl, this I'm gonna tell my age. This is when, like, ER was like the only medical drama, and people like the pre-med majors would be sitting around ER excited. And I was like, I don't want that.
Me neither.
Right.
Yeah.
So at that point, though, but I was at a crisis because all of my life I had been told to be a doctor, be a doctor, be a doctor. So, or sorry, be a doctor or a lawyer. Doctor or lawyer. You're smart. Be a doctor or a lawyer. So, what ended up happening is, so I said, you know what? Let me just, I'll go into the business school, because with a business degree, I felt like it was much more I could do multiple things with. So I was like, let me figure out my life, but I want to keep going, because here's another word. Pausing is horrible. Like, just keep it going. Just keep it going, because you can. I have a guy on my team who has a theater degree. Okay, so I'm like, it doesn't matter. Just go ahead and get through. But so I went into the business
Finish,
school.
completion.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
completion. Yeah, don't try to make sure it has to be the perfect thing.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so I went to the business school, and then literally I was sitting there looking through business majors, and I'm looking through all the options, and I see the MIS degree, and somebody with me was like, hey, you're pretty good with technology. You should look at that one. And I was like, that sounds great. And then as I got into it more and more, I was like, this is my sweet spot. So that's
Yeah.
kind of what it was. I had gone into pre-med kind of as default, found out I didn't love it, and then pivoted to find something I did love. But
And that
I,
was okay.
yes, and that was good. It was good. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, but I think I stressed my mother out because I just did not like want to do medicine, and I was also pre-med, and I'm like, yeah, I think I'm gonna do this. I think I'm gonna do. I'm telling her like probably every semester. She's like, Maya doesn't know what she's gonna do. She's like in her third year of Oakland, and she don't know. But I got it. I kept going,
Kept going.
and it was revealed to me because
Yes,
I knew what I did not want. And
yes,
once you know what you don't want, don't 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 just force it. You don't have to
correct.
force it, but you do keep going, and you do completion, and you
Yeah.
complete it. You complete it.
So I always
Yeah.
say it's easy, if the ball is rolling, just to kind of tap it here or there to get direction is easier than if the ball is stopped and inertia has taken over and you got to start the
Mhm.
ball. Because,
Mm.
yeah, so like if it's rolling, you can always be like, oh, no, don't like that class. Let me drop it. Oh, let me add this class. Oh, let me do this. But to stop it
Just
is just
stop.
it takes so much more energy to get it going again.
Yeah, 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 yeah. All right. So, yep, there are more careers. Joni says there are just more
Yes.
careers out there. And maybe back in our years, it was not as obvious, but
Yes.
it is now. It is now, and that's what I preach. Here's my next question. What are your challenges now? So tell me
Yes.
a little bit. Well, you actually did tell me what you did earlier. You can like reaffirm what
Yeah.
you're doing now, and what are your challenges?
Yeah, no problem. So I have quite a few teams on my team, and we're all doing things like either process improvement, or I have a data science team that reports in through me. So what my challenge is right now is, because I've always led teams, but now I'm leading leaders. So
Mm.
to understand at what level of depth I need to be understanding what they're doing, because now there's people reporting to people who report to me. So it's kind of like understanding how much do I need to understand so that I can guide them appropriately, and how much do I need them to let them set the vision with their teams. So for me, my organization, I need to make sure they're mapping up to that vision for my organization. But it's like, how do I, again, how do I get down enough so that I can help before it becomes a real issue, without also letting these people kind of rise to the greatness that they're doing.
So
So
I
yeah,
mean, it's the same thing. Like it feels like this is your from college. It's like, how much do I need to
yeah,
know? Wow, it's like,
it is.
wow.
Because listen, I mean, and I have another friend who's an administrator, and I sometimes she's working on something, and I tell her this is not the best use of your time. Because for me, what I bring to the table, I have to make sure what I'm working on is the best use of my time. So it's not the best use of my time to necessarily put all these slides together, because that's just not a good use of my time. I should be doing something more value added work. So I'll have somebody else do, or I may sketch out like, hey, this is what I want, go off and kind of help me, bring it, but because it's a better use of their time. Or maybe they understand the information more. I'm just telling them, when you're doing this, I need to make sure you have answered these 3 questions through these slides. So I'm more guiding versus doing the work. And it's a challenge, Maya, because a lot of the value that we see is in the output that we do. But when you go into leadership, it's no longer my output. but it's the
Wow.
output that I am realizing through my team.
Right.
Yeah, dude, let me tell you, my niece messed me up when I first took a leadership job. She was like 12, right? And she says to me, she said, Auntie, what do you do? So I explained to her I was leading a data warehousing team at the time. So they take all the data from the company and produce all these reports. So I tell her that. And she's like, okay, that's what your team does. What do you do? And
You know, you don't do nothing. You taught your niece a new word. It's called delegate. I
delegate.
delegate.
Right.
And
No,
it's hard to delegate.
it's hard. But what I realize is that my value in that delegation process and everything is, as a leader, my number one job is to inspire the team to where we're trying to go. So if they don't get the vision of where we're trying to go, they're gonna go in a whole bunch of different directions before I can get them back together. It's gonna be like herding cats. The second thing is I bring calm to chaos. So a lot of times, especially when I had operations teams, things are always broken. Like you come in and everyone's kind of running around with their hair on fire, and you got to be like, okay, wait, stop. What's the problem we're trying to solve? What have we already tried? What isn't working? What is just noise? So if I can do those things, then I'm making room for the people to be spending time on things that are valuable. So while it doesn't produce an output because they're going to be the ones fixing the system, I'm clearing the way so that output happens in a more efficient way or a better way.
Absolutely. It's very necessary. My mom is like, "Is that the same as delegating?" Yes, mom. That's
Yeah,
exactly what it is. It
yeah. So
is. It is.
it's
It,
delegating,
it,
but it's
it's also vision, like, vision casting, shaping,
yeah,
supporting. It's a lot of things, and it's necessary.
yeah.
And it's basically leadership. What Mrs. Katora Jenkins is she is a leader. That's what I'm
Yes.
hearing.
Yeah, and it's delegating, but it's delegating with purpose, right?
Mm,
So I'm not just, it's not like stuff's coming to me and I'm just like, oh, you
you
get
do
that,
this.
you get that, you get that. It's more of like understanding within the context of, okay, yep, you need to do that because it links to this part of your work. It's going to enhance that this way, or maybe you need to stop doing this. So it's really helping to bring the work in, and fit it in the context of what we're trying to do in that delegation. And sometimes that delegation means that somebody comes to me and I'm like, nope, we're not doing that because
Right.
it's not within our it's not what we're doing.
It's not in
So
our lane.
yeah, it's not in our lane, or it's against our lane, or
It's
whatever.
taking away time from what we should be doing.
Yeah, time, capacity, capacity, all these other things. So yes, it is delegating, and it's being intentional about it
Hmm.
as well.
Okay. And that can be a challenging thing. Because you
Oh
so
yeah.
many people, so many teams, you
Yes.
know. How many teams you how many?
I only have three teams. So the way my organization is split is it's split into three teams with three different disciplines. But again, and I've had teams that were larger than the team that I have now, but they were just structured a bit differently. So I had more people reporting directly to me. So the challenge right now is because everyone doesn't report to me, I don't know exactly what people are working on. And the challenge with that is sometimes if I'm asking for something, I don't know if it's going to put something other else into jeopardy. Because if I ask for it, the people are going to tell me yes. And so I have to
Because you're the
constantly,
boss.
because I'm the
Yeah.
boss, right? So I have to constantly. So I had an example where I was on a call with someone else who reported to me, and he was like, "Hey, I was trying to get this guy to do something. He hasn't responded to me. I can't get him to do it." So while he's telling me, I'm like typing to the guy, like, "Hey, can we do this?" And he's like, "Sure, I'll get it to you in an hour." And but I had to like, okay, well, wait, is it is it harder than, did the guy one not ask you, or is it hard but you're just gonna make it happen for me? Like, I don't want to displace some other work. So it's again getting intentional around making sure they understand just because I ask doesn't mean the answer has to be yes, or just because I give a
Mm.
suggestion, tell me my suggestion is wrong and tell me why, and we can get to something better. So that is also,
That means you have to manage your ego as well, and not
oh yeah.
take things personally.
No, listen, this is what I always tell people: if you are the smartest person in the room, you have hired wrong.
Mm.
Right. If I am the smartest person in the room, I have hired inadequately on my team, because I should be hiring on my team for things that I do not understand. And so there may be things that I am more knowledgeable about, certainly as in leadership, But there are things that my team knows that I don't know. I'm like this deep on, like, but I need to be able to trust them that they know that. But if I always have to have the right answer, then we're gonna get, it's gonna get really challenging.
Woo! And this interview is life. Okay, this is not just STEM and technology. This is organization in all of its forms. I guess that's the point. Enterprise transformation, right?
Yeah, you got to transform
Wow.
enterprise, right? And I know I didn't give a ton. I gave a horrible, excuse me, a horrible bio. But so I also taught leadership development for 6 years in corporate America. I'm also an executive coach. So a lot of the things that I'm talking about are just concepts that you just need to apply, as you start to do leadership. But that's leadership anywhere. It doesn't matter if you're leading in a technology, if you're leading in a different way. It's all about like, man, as the leader, do I have this bigger picture, and am I doing things in a way that's helping my team to be better?
Yes, yes. So tell me this last question. So you have a career,
Yep.
right? So that you have an opportunity to really delve into your bio now. Like you talk about everything you do, and tell me what is the favorite part of your career. So let's start again. Like you said, after you got your degree, you've done multiple things. Can you tell us about it, and what is your favorite part?
Yeah. So after I got my degree, I got in this program that was a leadership development program. So it was like you're in IT, but we're gonna groom you for leadership. So that was kind of my first track. Then I got into this kind of, so that was kind of one thing. Then I got into this quality side. So that's all that Six Sigma stuff I was talking about, quality, all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Um, then I was leading kind of technical teams in that way. Then that's when I took a hard left and started doing leadership development, like almost randomly. but the weird thing about that, when we talk about making a turn, so I went from having like a 40-person team to being an individual contributor. So no team at all, and doing all the work again myself. But it was because I knew I wanted to get into this area and get deeper. So I went into leadership development. Then I started helping develop content, teaching classes. That's when I wrote my book. That's when I did so much. That's when I got my certification to be an executive coach. So I was really kind of focusing on my own development, which you can do a lot more if you don't have a team reporting to you.
Mm-hmm.
Then I kind of pivoted back to IT within this last 2 years. So those are kind of all the domains that I've been in, kind of technology, quality, and then leadership development. So that's kind of what I've done. What I'll say is, what in terms of like what's my favorite part about it, I love developing people. I
Mm-hmm.
love being able to kind of come in and see that because I'm kind of in the mix, I've helped us get someplace we wouldn't have gotten without the skills that I bring. So I love that. What I also love is being able to work on a team where we all have different disciplines, but we come together and we appreciate each other for what we all do well. Right. So my peers have a very different skill set than I do. And I'm not looking at them like, why don't you do what I do? And they don't look at me like, well, hey, why aren't you deeper technically?
Right.
We both are able to come together and come with amazing solutions because we can look at it holistically without me trying to do his job and him trying to do my job. So that's one of my favorite things as well. So I would say definitely developing and growing people, and definitely kind of bringing a diverse skill set of people together to basically be better than the sum of our parts.
Wow. That's an awesome career. I had such a great time talking to you about your experience. I will say that she's an excellent developer of people. I reached out to Katora about her book, and just like that, I have my own. She just gave me some great advice.
Excellent.
So she's awesome at what she does. This is Katora Jenkins. I am the phenomenal STEMist, and so is she. Thank you so much. It's been a great interview. Good night, everybody. You guys have a great week.
Bye.